All right, everybody. Hopefully my headphones are working here. We are live in Eugene, Oregon, and we're going to be covering a whole bunch of different stuff around hypertrophy, the best types of hypertrophy to gain big time muscle mass. Let's see here. And also just going over everybody who, hopefully there's not too bad of an echo. This week's t-shirt giveaway winners, Totally Raw 1313 from our speed video, and then Paul Friel Rocky on the bulk video. You guys are getting our free shirts this week. All you've got to do is email support@garagestrength.com. Tell us that you won the free t-shirt giveaway. Take a picture of your YouTube studio. Send that over in the email. Then we confirm that it's actually you who won the t-shirt. And then in turn, we are going to be mailing you out those free shirts. So that's all you have to do is comment on that long form YouTube video. Make sure that you are actually the person you're claiming to be. Send that over to support@garagestrength.com, and then that shirt's going to be going your way. So I am out in Eugene, Oregon. I'm here at USA Track and Field Championships. I went from USA weightlifting to USATF from Denver or from Colorado Springs. I flew from Denver to Eugene, and now we're here. And tomorrow we start the competition. So we're going to get into a couple quick questions. I'm also live on Instagram. So if you guys on Instagram have any questions, you should head over to the YouTube live as well. And let's see how this YouTube live is actually flowing. Hopefully it's not too choppy over there. All right, so couple big questions right off the bat. How would you incorporate endurance and stamina training? Okay. And so this was a question from Dion Lovell 5566. And if Jason can put that stuff into the YouTube chat so that everybody can see that question, I think that would be ideal. So if we would go over, if we're talking about speed-based training, okay, so speed-based training, how would I incorporate some type of endurance and stamina work? And I think that big question would be, what are we doing? Like, what sport are we focusing on with speed versus what sport are we focusing on? Are we developing speed for football? And then at the same time, we also have to develop endurance and stamina for football. Or are we developing speed for wrestling? And then we have to have endurance and stamina for wrestling. So that's where that question is going to come into play. Is also, what is if we're talking about, let's say, uh, field hockey or soccer, are we trying to develop the stamina level for field hockey and for soccer, or the speed level? And so we've got to look at that initial question right away. It has to be, what sport are we specifically going to be talking about? And then coming back to, what's the priority? A sport like soccer and lacrosse and field hockey might have to have a little bit more endurance work, just a little bit more than speed work. Now, I did want to say this. Ryan Tarafenko just won the U.S. Men's lacrosse team. They just won the world title in lacrosse. And so Ryan Tarafenko actually trains with Garage Strength. I just want to give him a shout out. And we do quite a bit of speed work with him. And then we do 2 to 3 sessions a week, depending upon what he's doing in his practices for that specific week. Then we'll do 2 to 3 endurance-based sessions. And those endurance sessions might only be 15 to 20 minutes of interval-based work. And then once a week, he might do 45 to 50 minutes of long, slow distance work. Okay, so that long, slow distance work actually is going to have a huge payoff, and it's not going to crush him with his speed-based work. So most of his speed work is going to be, one, on the field, and then two, most of his speed-based work is also going to be during an athlete day or an impulse day. Okay, so we're going to be doing a lot of plyometrics, a lot of jumps, and things along those lines. So that would be my answer for something like lacrosse. Now, if we're talking about football, we're going to have to focus on, what specific position are we dealing with? Are we a wide receiver? Are we tight end? Are we a running back? And then when you look at that, you go, all right, well, they need a bit more speed than they do endurance, and they're going to get a lot of endurance work in their actual practice. Okay, so when they're actually practicing, they're going to get a lot of that endurance work. So maybe only once or twice a week, we'll need to focus on that endurance and that stamina. Okay, so that endurance might be once a week. We do long, slow distance. Everybody gets on the assault bike. Everybody goes swimming, or everybody does rowing, whatever, something easy. And then once a week, more high intensity interval work that's going to be 15 to 20 minutes long. And then the rest of the time, they're going to have that stuff pay off. They're going to have that endurance work from the actual specific field work. And a lot of times, strength and conditioning coaches, we like to operate in this vacuum, right? We're in this vacuum where everything that we do is really only the only thing that matters. D Fierce just said, bro, Peak Strength app is changing my life. So everybody should head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store, and the Apple iOS Store, and pick up Peak Strength today for 7 free days of training. So um, I think that when it comes back to stamina and endurance training, it has to go down to that specific sport and the specific strength characteristics needed for those specific sports, and then you've got to move forward based off of that. So that's a question from Dion Lovell, 5566. I think that's a fantastic question. I think that's a question that a lot of athletes and coaches struggle with, is that we we hate strength and conditioning coaches hate doing endurance based work, and that was sort of like the challenge for me of getting into distance running. Was I wanted to see what would this do for my strength, what would this do for my plyometric work, what would this do for, would it have a negative impact, a neutral impact, what would that look like for me long term, uh, so that I can have a better clue as far as setting people up. And I'll even share this. Tommy Hudson, who's a tight end for the Broncos, has been working with us and for about four programs now, and even he wants to be in better endurance shape as he gets into camp, mainly because we do so much strength work and so much explosive work and so much work around being powerful that he needs to make sure that when he's fatigued in camp, he's not making any errors or anything along those lines. So even for a sport like football, where you might weigh 245, 255 pounds as a tight end, you still have to be in that fourth quarter firing on all cylinders. So it does come down to having a big payback. And I'll bring this, and I'm going into Dion level 5566, your question quite a bit, is that even if we just look at someone like Jakob Ingebrigtsen, okay, he's the best 1500-meter guy in the world right now. He lost last year at the World Championships to Whiteman from Great Britain, but he's arguably the best. I mean, he just broke the world record in the 2 mile. I think he might have even broke the world record in the 1500, but he's been on a tear this year in the 1500. He's got phenomenal endurance, okay? And he's fast, extraordinarily fast. Now, he's not as fast as some of the other 1500-meter guys, like the dude Katir from Spain, who's got a crazy kick. But where I'm going with this is that Ingebrigtsen does 3 days a week. He'll do high mileage in the morning, high mileage at night. So he might go run 6 to 7 miles in the morning, 6 to 7 miles at night, and he's only running a 1500 meter. Okay, so in comparison, now he also runs a 5, but in comparison, he's getting a lot of slow distance work done to develop that stamina. And I think that that's something that, as strength coaches, we can pull from the distance world, is say, no, even in a sport like the 800, okay, in the event like the 800, we're even looking at that and going, all right, you've got to be really fast with the 800, but you also will have a tremendous payoff from some of the LSD work. Okay, so if we take a guy going back to the Tommy Hudson scenario, and he's doing 2 or 3 days a week of easy, slow distance, but he's still getting stronger, that's gonna pay off long term. So, yeah, Josh Sriracha, what are you doing? Why are you in here? You should be prepping for tomorrow. What's more important with speed? Continuous acceleration or max velocity? For speed base, that's going to depend on the sport, but usually it's going to be continuous. Acceleration wins almost everything. As long as you have good acceleration, that's going to win everything. The sooner you can accelerate, the faster you can accelerate, the better you're going to be. All right, let's get into the next question here. Hello from the Netherlands. Everybody from around the world tuning in. Please make part 2 guide for volleyball men. We have a volleyball video coming out in August on Peak Strength. Make sure you guys head over to Peak Strength, the YouTube channel Peak Strength, because we're dropping some bangers over there. Daryl Paxson 47. Daryl Paxson 47. Love the exercises for uniqueness and mobility. Can this, and this is on our recent mobility video, can this be adapted or used by people all over 55 or seniors? And so, Daryl, what I would say is that when you're watching mobility movement or mobility exercises, I think the big thing that you can do is try to look at it like I can um, I can I can do these mobility exercises, or I can go a step down, like make it a little bit easier. And so what you can look at is say, all right, this is really really hard. This exercise, let's just say pigeon pose is really hard, or prayer stretch is really hard. You can take it a step back and just sort of like gradually work into it. So I would argue everybody can do mobility movements. Everybody can get to that point of doing mobility movements. Robert Chalfont, do you have a bass fishing strength training program? Dude, we've got to get that rolling. Holy shit, that's a great question. um, but going back to Daryl Paxton's question, is that Daryl, we've got to look at it and say, okay, if we're doing mobility movements, scale it to our ability or scale it to our movement patterns currently, work through it, and think about this long term. Think about this. Um, What's up, Teddy Glenn, D1 rower from Temple University. Got to get that high snatch pulls for you guys. Build into those positions, build into those areas of mobility, and let it take time. And give yourself like this is a crazy example, but when we say like what's a realistic time frame, one of my friends, Eric Miller, taught himself how to do a split, and he said, you know what, I want to teach myself how to do a split. I'm going to give myself 18 months to do a split. And so he spent 18 months working on his mobility to get to do a split. But the difference was he didn't say, I'm going to give myself 18 days. I'm going to give myself 2 weeks. He's like, I'm going to do something to develop a split over 18 months. And guess what? 18 months later, he could do a split. And so what the lesson becomes is that oftentimes we put these crazy time frames on ourselves to achieve mobility or to achieve strength or to achieve whatever it might be. And then that creates this, sense of failure. And I relate this also to distance running. We talk about this. I've talked about this on Instagram quite a bit with distance running, is that instead of saying I want to go out and run 5 miles, it's easier to say I want to run for 15 minutes. And in 6 weeks, I want to be able to run for 30 minutes. And if you beat those goals, that's great. But if you can look at the goals in a realistic time frame and give yourself that time frame and say, screw it, I want to strength train for 3 months to get my bench press to go from 225 to 250. If in 3 months I can put 25 pounds on my bench, well, what about 6 months? Make it 6 months. So then if you hit it early, you feel good, but it's a more realistic time frame. So that's for Daryl Paxton's mobility question. I think everybody can do mobility, and everybody should be doing mobility. Um, and I think that we should just take it slowly and work into those positions. And that's also what's great about yoga to a point as well. And then this is the last question. This is from Nick Stevens, 5855. Nick Stevens, 5855, and this is rep ranges for chest development. This is from one of our shorts. I think this is a really, really great question that a lot of people ask us as far as hypertrophy, which means building more mass, as far as getting, bigger in general, but then at the same time recognizing like we want to play a sport or we are playing a sport. Let me move that camera over just a little bit. Actually, that might be blocking my chat over here. Okay, so it is blocking my chat. Sorry, I gotta move this back. Actually, I'll put it like this. Get a nice view of my Airbnb. There we go. So I think that when we're looking at this question here, and this is going back to the hypertrophy question, right, from Nick Stevens 5855, is that if we're looking at hypertrophy and we understand that hypertrophy goes back to building mass, like building some type of muscle mass, or just developing um, uh, uh, some type of increase in muscular, I love this term, muscular architecture. Okay, so if we can develop an improvement in muscular architecture, that in turn is going to help us as far as athletic muscle is concerned. So what's the best way to go about building that? And I think that this is often, we look at hypertrophy through this lens of we're only able to build hypertrophy based off of, you know, let's say bodybuilding. All right, if we're doing bodybuilding like 5 sets of 15 or 5 sets of 20, whatever that is, that's the only way we're gonna get bigger. Or you know, something along those lines. That's how we see it. But we also know, and that would be, you know, let's say we do a bench press 5 sets of 15. That's that feeling that you get when you're pressing and you just start to feel this huge pump. That's more related to sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Okay. But then we can look at, all right, well, what if we're doing instead of 5 sets of 15, what if we were doing like 10 doubles? What if we're doing 10 doubles of bench or 10 doubles of back squat or 10 doubles of, you know, incline bench, whatever, pull-ups, 10 sets of 5 pull-ups, and we're building muscular strength in these specific areas. Okay, so there's a couple ways that we can do it. We can look at it and say, all right, if we increase mechanical load, so if we create a bigger load on our muscles, okay, that's going to lead to our body is more aware of what's happening. Then we have signaling in our nervous system, which leads to more motor unit recruitment, which in turn helps us express that strength a little bit better. But then we do this, you know, let's say 8 sets of 4 or whatever the set scheme is. Um, Now, over time, that's going to lead to myofibrillar hypertrophy, which means we're going to have more myofibrils inside of our muscle, which in turn makes us stronger. Okay, and so Tamid just gave us a super chat. Boom, thank you, Tamid, asking. Keist, I was on time this time, by the way. I was on time. I swear I had everything set up as well as I possibly could. I still don't get why when I'm in the United States some of these Airbnbs, like, why is my video choppy on this, but the audio should be fine. Hopefully the audio is fine because I got my headphones on YouTube. Anyway, Tamid's asking, what are exercises to superset to move like DJ in MMA? Okay, I don't know if I'm going to be able to help you move like DJ, but what I would look at as far as um, being more explosive or being faster in MMA, I would look at it if I'm like 12 weeks out, I would use some type of contrast training. So what I would end up doing then is doing like a single leg squat. So let's say we did a single leg squat, like 6 triples on each leg, and they're unbroken. The triples are unbroken, so they're fast. It's like boom, boom, boom. And the intent is to move that quickly. We're going to coordinate as quickly as possible. We got to focus on that trunk position. We need to make sure that we're not swaying all over the place. So we have that dynamic trunk control. And if you guys want one of these shirts, head over to garagestrength.com. That's our peace symbol right there. Um, so we can do some type of, you know, single leg squat like that. And then we can even either do the garage strength contrast method, which would be doing that with a reflexive movement, or that could be, let's say, a single leg dumbbell snatch, or we can do single leg stair jumps, single leg whiz jumps. We could do single leg bounds, or we could even do hurdle hops. So I like to think about if we're for specific to MMA. In this case, actually, this goes back to that question. Um, the main question of this whole discussion, which is from Nick Stevens, 5855, which hypertrophy is the best for gaining athletic muscle? If we're looking at it going, okay, myofibrillar hypertrophy is the best, but we also have to make sure that we're moving very, very well. So we've got to bring in some reflexive work. We got to bring in some type of work where we're really trying to train the nervous system to react as quickly as possible. And so that in turn, there actually becomes less intent from our brain, and our brain's just cut off, and we're just doing these movements as fast as possible. I like to think about doing like a hurdle hop or doing a stair jump. Like maybe that first repetition is going to be a fast reaction, right, with an intentional response. But each sequential series, it becomes less about intent and more about reactiveness that your body has been trained to do. And that's what ends up. It's sort of like the flow state stuff that you would read about. That's what ends up happening in a lot of MMA. That's what the best athletic performers do, is that they're so good at their movement patterns that the initial intent is there for a very split second, for a very short period of time, but then it just becomes a period of flow. So I think that that's the best thing that you could do, Tamid, is learn how to react quickly in a single leg position, and then learn how to master that single leg position with rapid reactions in the gym. That way, when you're in the cage or you're on the mat, wherever it is that you're at, it becomes more automatic. And that's actually, there's a video of Dalvin Cook breaking down like his jukes, some of his best jukes. It's on YouTube. And Dalvin Cook's talking about how he reads the defense, how he reads his line play, how he reads all these things, and he makes one decision. But he even says in this video, he's like, I don't know what's happening here. Like, I don't know how I'm cutting like this. Like, it's just going. And I think that that's the biggest difference between the best of the best and that next level is that the best of the best have the intentional thought and then they let their body go. Their mind escapes and their body just executes. But the individuals that are a little bit below, they have thoughts of uh, they have self-conscious thoughts. They have thoughts around um, doubts around their individual execution. They have worries. They have all these things that get in the way of entering into like the flow state and entering into like just the automatic state. And so what ends up happening then is that even if you're training that way, oftentimes you don't react that way. And going back to the Dalvin Cook scenario where he was like, I don't know how I'm making these cuts. I just do it. It's based off of feel and it's, you might have a linebacker would do this. A linebacker will have their first initial read and probably a second read as well. They'll first, second read, and it's basically usually on like a triangle here. But oftentimes, once the play goes, they're just feeling things, and then after the play is over, they're back in that intentional brain. But during the play, they can't have that intentional brain because they'll react too slowly. So there's an interesting dichotomy of like two different brain types that are actually existing. And so for a strength coach to move like a savage MMA fighter, we have to train it to be brain one and brain two. And I think that that goes into that Tamid question there. I hope that makes sense for everybody. But it's really the best athletes. It's like this in throwing. As soon as you get into the circle, you have to have that thought of I'm going to do this technique. But then as soon as you start to get into it, you don't think about that. It's not like you go through like the process. Okay, I'm going to put my right foot here and do this here and then do this here. You just let it go. And the best of the best let that go and they execute at very high speeds. They get out of their way. Um, Okay, so I'm going to get into some of these questions. And in all reality, going back to that chest question, if we want to build a large chest that is going to help us with athletic muscle, which means applying a large amount of force as quickly as possible, being able to handle that large amount of tension, and being able to, let's just say, thinking about that crazy Derrick Henry stiff arm where he basically just launches I think it was a D end. Um, if you think about chest strength or size through that realm, we've got to train more so higher speed movements for the chest, slow speed but high weight. So let's say doubles or triples, but also doubles or triples at 60 to 70%, moving very, very fast. We've also got to do things like depth drops, pause, explode into other positions. So we've got to work through different joint angles, different joint intensities, different joint speeds, force absorption, force application, and that's how we really develop that. That's what we're doing inside of Peak Strength as well. One of the comments earlier is Peak Strength changed our one commenter's life. Peak Strength's changing people's lives in the realm of athletic performance because they're getting stronger, they're getting bigger, they're creating, they have better workouts and they're executing more. And then now they're starting to think about their actual intention inside the gym. Instead of just going and lifting as much weight as possible, they're thinking about how can the weight that I'm lifting right now transfer over to my sport? And I think that that's where there's quite often there's a big disconnect is that a lot of athletes just lift weights and then they just do their sport. And coaches will say, just go lift this weight and then just go do your sport. But in reality, it's lift this weight so that you get better at your sport. And the reason why this is going to get better at your sport is because this, and this. And now that bridge gets created. So now their brain operates on a higher level of training so that when they're in their sport, it's more automatic. And I think that that's one thing that a lot of strength coaches miss. Um, Tom Abe just said, is there an alternative to single leg squat according with his question? I would say you could do step ups, but yeah, you could do a back squat or a front squat as well. Okay, so Solidarity just commented, peak strength has definitely improved my athleticism. Can't wait to try the peak strength, endurance, and cardio recommendations. So that's going to come in on next Monday. We just had a meeting this morning actually going over this. Uh, Keith, what was your question there? I don't know if I answered your question. Sorry. Let me see here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how worth it is peak strength? This is from GMR. Solidarity comes in. GMR, 10 out of 10 easily. I appreciate that quite a bit. That's awesome. Would you prescribe sumo deadlifts to athletes? No, I would not prescribe sumo deadlifts to athletes unless I have a wrestler who's a folk style wrestler who likes to ride legs. If you ride legs, I'd probably have you do a sumo. I wouldn't do a lot of sumo deads, but we would do it to try. I would probably do more of Cossack squats that are banded to try and get when you get in and you're riding legs, it's similar to BJJ. If you're trying to get into like a rear naked choke position, that way your adductors do get stronger, but also you can just freaking squat more and even point your toes out a little bit more, and that's going to help increase your adductors. So yeah, that's a Jude coming in. Jude Bueno, peak strength is 100 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for this. I think that's a cool thing with peak strength too, is that we had this. I had like an hour and a half meeting this morning when I went for a run this morning, and I was on my headphones during the meeting while I was running, going through the stuff that's happening over the next year. It's going to be really really fun to go through this. Uh, Keith just said, did Dane answer how much one should clean to increase the IQ by 10 points? And I'm assuming Keith is relating this back to um, leaner abs leads to higher IQs. So I do believe, I think cleaning can improve your logical intent because it forces you to think more about movement. I don't know about increasing IQs though. So let's just say you can add 15 kilos. Okay, so GMR. Then I will get peak strength. I'm starting from zero, so I will keep track of my progress and update people here. And GMR, this is what I would say to you. This is similar to the split story that I gave you earlier. Is like if you're gonna go in and you're gonna get peak strength, look at it this way. Say, okay, I want, I'm starting at zero. I want to be in 8 months. I want to be able to do a back squat. Um, I want to be able to do a back squat for, my body weight. Let's say my body weight is 220. If I'm starting from zero, in 6 months, I want to be able to do my body weight. So I want to have 225 on the bar, and I want to do that for a set of 10. Let's say like set goals like that, and I'm going to give myself 6 months to do it. I want to bench press my body weight for a set of five. You know, if you're starting from square one, if you're more advanced, and let's say you can bench 300, say in 6 months I want to bench 315. I want to have three plates on. Now you establish that date, but your date is realistic. So often we set these goals that are just like absurdly short because we want that response right away. We want like the feedback right away. Like, oh well, I didn't add 50 pounds to my bench press in 2 weeks. I'm a failure. And then you move on to the next goal that you set with too short of a time frame, and then all of a sudden you can't hold yourself accountable. So we've got to remember all that stuff. Jabari, I do 30 sets, but I train two muscle groups each session. So 15 for each muscle group, 15 sets for each muscle group. In total for the week, I do 30 because I train each muscle twice a week. So you're actually keeping track of your specific muscles. Tamid, yeah, step ups with rotational lunge, would that work? That would definitely work. Talk about intensity, volume, and consistency, which is important. So this is from Thamim. I think that Thamim, what I would do, Aiden Perez, what some of home body weight exercises weightlifters could do for shoulder strength, mass, and stability. I think Thamim, what I would say is looking at intensity and volume. First of all, I always am gonna favor volume. Volume to me is king. Volume in the weight room to me is like LSD work for distance running. I really think it's the foundation. Mario, you could go watch. I've got some really good. I just did a we just Peak Strength's got a whole video on high guard, so I would go watch that. Three exercises for pro boxers. I basically spent a week watching Winky Wright videos and then came up with movements around it. So I think if we're looking at volume, it's like volume and intensity is great. Now, if I'm in a sport like weightlifting or powerlifting, intensity's got to be like the last 8 to 12 weeks of a training cycle. But volume should still be there with some specific strength work as well. Um, yeah, I want to get into this. Join the disc. Yeah, everybody should be joining our Discord. So that's like if you're on these chats, right, and you are interested in peak strength, or you watch our YouTube channel, or you watch the Peak Strength YouTube channel, or you follow us on Instagram and you see these things, then when you get Peak Strength the app, then or you have questions like this, we do these YouTube lives once a week. You can ask these questions here, but then as well inside the Discord channel, you can go ask all these questions inside the Discord channel on a regular basis, as well as related to your own training. How should I incorporate peak strength? Oh wait, I wanted to answer that one question about body weight exercises at home for. Okay, so Aiden Perez, what are some at-home bodyweight exercises for weightlifters that will help with shoulder stability, mass, and stability? Okay, so body weight exercise at home for mass, shoulder stability, and performance. I'm going to say right off the bat, handstand push-ups. If you can't do handstand push-ups, do normal push-ups. If you can't do normal push-ups, do kneeling push-ups or band-assisted push-ups. Okay, so that would be my first thing. So handstand push-ups, then a handstand deficit, clap push-ups. Okay, that's another thing. Also doing like pike push-up. So if my feet were on the if my feet are on a chair and my butt's super high, I can do like a pseudo handstand push-up. Um, a reclining row. I have a table in here in the kitchen, and I put all the chairs on one side of the table, and I was doing reclining rows, reclining pull-ups on the chair or on the table because it's a bigger table. So now you can get lat strength, bicep strength, grip work done as well. So that would be my recommendation right there. Solidarity posts a lot there. I post a few of them with some questions and comments. Okay, so how should I incorporate peak strength into my D1A rugby season? 5 practices per week. Games are on Saturdays. So Joey, what I would do there is I'd say peak strength. I want to train 3 days a week. Okay, so you're going to train 3 days a week. And then what you can do is you educate the app. I'm going to train 3 days a week. It's going to give you a leg power day. It's going to give you an upper body power day. It's going to be an athlete day as well. And then, okay, after you get that done, now um, with the weight selection, if you're worried that it's going a little heavy or you're fatigued, you can just alternate, okay, this is too hard or this is too easy, but educate the app on what's hard, what's easy based off the in-season training that you have going on. Okay, that should help. This is from Benjamin Olgar. Do you ever do any tendon focus training? I have slight pain in my pec major tendon, and seeing pec tear videos have made me a little bit afraid. So Benjamin, when I hear that, first of all, I think tendon training would be focusing on mobility work. Let's say you do scorpion twice a day or something like that. Let's say you do door stretch twice a day. Okay. Then I would look at, all right, I need to find the movements that hurt my pec the most and take them out. Let's say 3 exercises. Let's say dips, barbell bench press, and incline barbell bench press. Hurt my pec. Okay, take those 3 out. We're not doing them. Now the next thing. Okay, let's do slow eccentric. Go through a slow position where we have struggle or we feel our pec, but it's not killing us. Now we can do dumbbell bench press. Get a nice stretch and then come back up. Get a nice stretch, come back up. Okay, so now we can work through that. I should have done a Tour de France video, Keist. You're so accurate on that, man. We screwed that one up. Jason, we should be doing a Tour de France video. But now we can focus on developing tendon strength with that slower eccentric with dumbbell work. So when I think about dumbbell or when I think about tendon and joint work, I do think one deeper range of motion. I usually think pause or a slight or a slower eccentric. I also do think as well higher reps. So that would be my answer. And I would say go 4 to 8 weeks of slow dumbbell work, lots and lots and lots of vertical pressing. So if I have pec issues, I'm going to spend 8 weeks focusing on Z press, military press, pin presses. Okay, so that's going to help while I'm doing that mobility work in my pecs, doing a lot of back work. And I bet you after 8 weeks, a lot of that issue around your pec will go away. Will the peak strength cardio update include speed and acceleration work for football or basketball? So, Jude, what the peak strength cardio work is going to have is things like an assault bike or a fan bike is what we call it in the app, fan bike. Okay, running, different interval based running, um, rowing, ski erg, things like that. Okay, so over time, maybe that's another one. Eccentric overloading. How to 5 examples of eccentric overloading. But over time, the endurance and the stamina work is based off of time frames, interval work, long duration work. But it's more focused on those different rower, ski erg, fan bike, distance running. I'm trying to think back to. I can't use my phone because I that's where I have everything laid out in there, so I could check that out. Okay, what sort of off-season lifting training would you recommend for 400-meter sprinters? Um, so as far as a 400 meter, I would look at like what's the issue that you have? Do you feel is your top end speed slow or is your top end speed pretty good? Um, Duran just said shoulder pain relief during the snatch. I warm up a lot and do mobility and strength work in my rotator cuff, but it doesn't seem to work. I'd have to know where that shoulder pain is at. Is it behind your shoulder? Um, do you have really, really tight T-spine? I'd have to see what that looks like. Okay, so going back to this question, then it would be if we're looking at a 400-meter sprinter, I would want to know what's their kick like, what's their start, how many strides do they take in a lap, how many strides do they take in lap one. If we're in a training session, let's say we're doing 10 400s, how many strides in lap one versus lap six versus lap 10? Um, what are they running 100 in on average? What are their splits essentially? And then I would look at, single leg squats with a long stride, hamstring work. Um, I want to focus on like maybe some power cleans, full cleans to work on their starting position, and doing if there's a strength issue would be okay. Let's back squat a little bit more, but then let's also run 600s during the off season as well. Just a Raven just commented, hello, I've been injured for 10 months in my adductors. At first, it was a mild strain. I've reached the conclusion that the injury is already healed, but it still hurts sometimes. I think that, just be aware of that over time. Make sure you're hitting those back squats, single leg squats, curtsy squats, walking lunges, overhead lunges. Be careful with Cossack squats, and make sure everything's going to be okay. And I think it'll improve. Um, let's see here. Jabari's Fitness Channel. Got to give you props for being able to do the 400. Yep, that's brutal. Okay. Should I push through the pain? And I think that's a great question. Like, should you push through the pain or should you not push through the pain? And I think that this could be another peak strength video to me, or maybe even a garage strength video, is that um, as far as pushing through pain, I think that pain is a hard thing to discuss because it's so specific to the individual. Um, some individuals will have very, very high pain tolerance, and some individuals will have high pain tolerance, but they tell you about everything. And then there's some individuals that have zero pain tolerance. And so they're almost like the boy who cried wolf. And so you've got to look at it as a coach and take everything as seriously as possible, but then try to differentiate like, all right, well, this person, when they're in pain, it's a 4 out of 10. When this person says they're in pain, it's probably a 9.5 out of 10. And when this person says they're in pain, you know, maybe they just tell you about everything that hurts when they sneeze, like something along those lines. And then so you've got to be honest with yourself, like, do you struggle with pain? Well, if you struggle with pain, like, are you the person who just stubs your toe and then you can't train for 2 to 3 days? And you've got to be real and say, all right, if I'm that person that stubs their toe and I can't train for a couple days, then my pain tolerance is not that high. So I probably should avoid training through that discomfort. And I think that's the thing is like we have to look at what's discomfort, what's pain, what is being hurt, and then what is being injured. And on that spectrum, the closer you get to being hurt, the sooner you become injured. But oftentimes, a lot of elite athletes can live in that hurt range and they can modify things in their hurt range because they have such a high pain tolerance and they know how to train smart when they're in that hurt range. A lot of people that have very low pain tolerance can't ever even get into the hurt realm because they can't deal with it. They can't deal with stress. You know, they're and I always like to relate this to you can tell pretty quickly with athletes, especially younger athletes, is that younger athletes with low pain tolerance will give up very, very quickly. Now, as they age, their pain tolerance improves because they get more comfortable with the stress of higher rep sets of squats and things like that, and then their pain tolerance increases, and now they get closer to living in that hurt range. And the other thing here is like we should not be living in the hurt range. The goal is that we don't want to be hurt all the time. But at the same time, in a world of sports performance, like you're going to be dealing with shit a lot. You know, if you're training hard, and especially if you're in a sport like football or wrestling or field hockey where there's contact, lacrosse where there's contact, you're going to be banged up quite a bit no matter what. And so we've got to be able to deal with that. What should I be training for football and soccer? Um, Neck extensions forward, also deadlifts for neck. Best neck exercise for hitting the ball in soccer. Best neck exercise. Sorry, I'm sort of reading through this. Okay, so training for football, training for soccer, and then neck exercises for head balls. Okay, my favorite neck exercises would be snatch high pulls, back bridges, clean pulls, cleans, and we have to remember that what's going to stabilize our neck and our neck and our back. If we look at like uh, just the erector spinae, those muscles are super slow twitch and they're built to be protective. Our neck muscles are built to be protective. Now, if we work on our traps and we work on our twitchiness of our entire body, that's going to lead to being able to absorb force faster. So if we're doing snatches or snatch pulls or snatch high pulls for football or for soccer slash football in Europe or the rest of the world, um, if we're doing power snatches or we're doing snatch high pulls or we're doing cleans, we're doing clean pulls or we're doing power cleans, and we're even doing plyometrics, now all of these movements are going to train our nervous system to react quickly, to fire all motor units and recruit all motor units across the board for your body to absorb a blow, especially a head ball, and then we can, you know, flex our neck to be able to handle uh, that contact. Um, so to go into that question, I think that head balls do scare me because head balls can really sort of screw with people with their brain. But as if your neck is strong enough, you can handle it. So yeah, that would be my answer. I know it's not like a clear thing, but I think just doing weightlifting movements. I think neck rolls are okay. I don't think they're amazing, but I do think that they help with the harness. Some wrestlers we've had do glute ham neck work where they're holding like an isometric position while doing neck work with a roll. I think those are very hard on the back and the neck. And I think a lot of the neck strength and the neck stability goes back to dynamic trunk control. If you have tension in your trunk, you can absorb that blow a little bit easier. Is using weights for plyometrics better than doing plyometrics without weights? This is from Uncle Fester. So this is an interesting question. So basically, Uncle Fester is questioning or asking, um, is asking, okay, if I do, let's say, a squat and jump, okay, so if I do a squat and jump with a bar on my back and I go boom, 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 let's say 3 jumps, is that better than doing 3 jumps without a bar on my back? Or is that better than doing hurdle hops, let's say? And I think it's important in training, and I think this is one thing that just drives me nuts with influencers in general, is like training is not absolute either way you look at it. And when we're looking at um, doing plyometrics with weight or not weight, like what are we trying to get out of it? We'll do dumbbell jumps holding a dumbbell. Then when you drop the dumbbell and you do bounds, you're going to get a good acute response in those bounds from dropping the dumbbells. And so it's it's being aware of what the adaptation is that we're looking for and recognizing that it's going to be positive either way. And if we can just pair things accordingly, and then as we get closer to a peak, I would do less plyometrics with weight and more plyometrics with body weight. So that would be my response. But I do want to just be aware, everybody to be aware, is that absolutism and doing things through this 100% lens of, we've got to do this style of training or that style of training or that style of training. Like it's not productive and it's not accurate. I'm a weightlifting coach who uses snatches and cleans in sports performance all of the time, but I don't believe you have to do that to become the greatest. I think there's other ways that you can do it. Now, I would prefer that you do that because I think it's a faster route, but I don't think you have to. Have I ever watched handball? Absolutely. Last night I was watching sequences of handball and how the different steps to score. So yes, I watched. Keith, I spend more time watching sports than anyone could imagine. I watch hours of sports and just like to see. Dude, we're doing a hurling video on peak strength. Like, come on, we watch everything. Um, let's see. As we get advanced athlete, our recovery time, as we get advanced athlete, our recovery time reduced. Okay, so I would say not necessarily if we're advancing over time, um, I think you just have to pay more attention to your recovery. I heard you talk about an extra day of buys and tries for football players in an old live. What day is best for that if I'm following peak 5 days every weekday? Okay, so you ever seen slam ball? Yes, slam ball is great, um, for sure. Okay, so if I'm looking at, let's say you're 5 days in on peak strength, okay, that hypertrophy day would be day five. The next day would be the day that I would recommend doing um, the actual buys and tries day. So it's like, let's say you start on a Sunday and you do leg power day. Then on day two, you do upper body power day. Then on day three, which is Tuesday, you do an athlete day. Then on day uh, four, you're doing impulse day. So that would be Wednesday. Then on day five, you're doing Thursday. That's a hypertrophy upper body day. Then on day six, you're doing strictly buys and tries. That's the way I would set that up. That's what I would do. How do you prevent your tendons from being hurt? Again, this goes back to, oh, Keith just asked if I would ever do a bodybuilding show. How do my arms look? Oh, the lighting's not the best here. Maybe I should turn this light on. Oh, there we go. Oh, look at that light. How's my lighting? I'm only doing that because Keith said to me if I would do a bodybuilding show. I don't think I would ever do a bodybuilding show. I'm not interested for some reason. It doesn't pique my interest. I think how do you prevent your tendons from being hurt? So I'm going to relate this back to distance running. When I first got into running, within like 10 weeks, I started to have like severe pain in my knees. And I think that severe pain came from me trying to get into longer runs too quickly. And so I took a step back and I started to say, all right, let's just focus on, you know, 3 to 4 months of just getting slowly building my volume up. Um, And so I think that's the big thing with strength training is like again using the realistic time frame. If we're going and we're looking at that realistic time frame and we're saying, okay, for me to bench press, 50 pounds more, I need a year to do that. I'm not going to bench 50 pounds more in 2 months. It's not going to happen unless I'm like 12 years old and I just hit puberty. Like it's just not going to happen. So I think that's the main thing is like, how do you protect your tendons? You protect your tendons by one, prioritizing your recovery, two, picking the right exercises in the right program, peak strength, and three, having realistic time frames. Okay. I actually want to, you know what I did want to go on a little bit rant. Uncle Fester just asked this question. What do you recommend for a cross country runner in the off season? A lot of hip mobility work, a lot of lower back work, a lot of breakdown. Yes, Spanish squats are great. A lot of breakdown of your technique. Um, and then just speed work, I would say. A lot of speed work, a lot of speed work, a lot of slow distance, a lot of speed work, a lot of slow distance. Um, so somebody was asking me like we're talking about okay, so we're talking about like the motivational side, right? And we're talking about so our motto at Garage Strength is cultivate your power. And the question was sort of like, well, what does that mean? Okay, what does this come down to? And I think that the hardest aspect of coaching is taking an individual and having them view their daily experience, their daily schedule through the lens of cultivating your power. Okay. And so what I mean by this is that if like what does this even mean, right? Is if we think about everybody in the chats, we've all had moments where we just feel something like in our gut. And this could be related to a significant other. This could be related to um, you listen to a song, you hear a song, and you just get like, oh my gosh, this song is so freaking good. Like I'm so amped up, I'm so motivated, right? Dude, Ode to Joy is a this classical song, right? Ode to Joy. Everybody should play this after this live and try and just listen to like 10 minutes for 10 minutes. Sit down, and there's a point in it where it sets up, and you just start to feel it. It's like a good EDM song, right? Like you start to feel it, and then the beat drops. You're like, yeah, this is awesome. But you feel this power deep inside of you, right? And the hard part of an athlete, and this goes back to all these questions, is that how can we, and so some people might only feel that when they play a video game. Some people might feel this when they play a sport. Some people might feel this when they listen to music or they're playing an instrument. Some people might feel this when they watch a sporting event or they watch some type of crazy event or something happens. But we've all felt this at some point, um, having this sort of gut reaction of power and energy deep inside of us. And so one of the big things that I've been focusing on is how can we bring this out of athletes every day? And so some athletes, we gotta dig with a bulldozer or a freaking mining tool to just get down and try and pull out that power a little bit. Other athletes are very motivated and they just show up and it's easy. They just need a little shovel to dig that power out, and every single day they're cultivating their power. But what ends up happening is like we've got to figure out as coaches, and but we've also have to figure out as individuals how do we pull out that, how do we cultivate our power inside of us every single day so that we can do something productive to achieve these long-term goals that we have of increasing our bench press or increasing our performance in our sport, or getting back to our sport if we're injured. And that's another common thing is that if we get injured, it gets harder and harder and harder to pull that power out of us because we're sort of downtrodden, we're beaten down, we're not able to do the things that we love. And so I think that where I'm going with this is like oftentimes training, motivation, injury prevention, it's all linked to every single morning reviewing like, all right, what's deep inside of me that I want to focus on today? What's gonna help me cultivate my own power, and what's going to make me happy today so that I can continue to cultivate my power over a long period of time so that in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, I can look back and be proud of what I've done, proud of that work ethic, proud of that achievement that I've had. And I think that that thought process of cultivating your power is a very dominant thing to think through. And I've said this before in regards to there's athletes like Nick Singleton, and he's the starting running back at Penn State. But there's also, you look at Nick, and then you look at Saquon Barkley, right? These are people who are freaks that cultivated their power all the time. And there's other freaks out there on their level physically, but they don't know how to cultivate their power. And I think that that's something I wanted to bring up. Tibialis raises with shin splints. I want to see what everybody thought about that. Let's see. Just a Raven is active today. He's posting about okay, so he's not, he's just talking about shin splints and stuff like, do calf sleeves actually help with shin splints? I'm not sure about that one, Uncle Fester. I'm not sure. You sound like you're young and reckless. Please be careful. That's for Just a Raven. How long can you hold a deep squat prayer stretch? I deep squat for 3 to 5 minutes every day. I think deep squatting can help with your ankle mobility. And the peak strength app, can we double up if we miss a day, sir? Yes, you can do that if you're traveling and you did miss a day. I'd say do the heavier session more in the morning and then the lighter session in the afternoon. I think is 5-3-1 good for rugby players? I mean, it can be, but come on, Mike Nolan, uh, peak strength's way better than 5-3-1. I think 5-3-1 though is pretty simple to follow, and it's pretty effective. Um, Exercises to get past a bench press plateau. Okay, so if are there solo football drills you would use for catching bullets? I would say if I'm a football player, American football, and I'm struggling with hand-eye coordination, what I would do, some of these we've posted recently with the balloon drill, some of them we've posted with the lacrosse ball. I also believe you can patch up your strong eye, your dominant eye, and you can throw tennis balls against the wall. You can throw lacrosse balls against the wall and try to force yourself to catch in certain positions with one hand. That's very beneficial for hand-eye coordination, and you start to think about your dexterity in your fingers and in your hands. I think those are great drills that you can do on your own time. That does help with that. Does rope jumping increase your vertical? Yes, I believe it definitely does increase your vertical 100%. Uh, yeah, so I think that all those things. Please start a gym in Amsterdam. That'd be cool. I would love to come to Amsterdam. I'd love to go to Amsterdam and do a clinic if you guys want me to. I can hold squats very well. Now, tennis ball drill helps a lot for sure. Okay, does anybody else have any other questions? Let's go back to Kyle Gabbert's exercises to get past a bench press plateau. I, I think we actually have a video on how to get past this, but clap push-ups, 50 reps every single night for 3 months. You're going to blow up your bench press. Dips, blow up your bench press. Dumbbell pause bench blows up your bench press. Dumbbell pause bench with a band behind your back blows up your bench press. Incline close grip bench blows up your bench press. Can you make a video training for power and speed training to get better at the decathlon? Ooh, that's a great one. I've seen a lot of decathletes out here this weekend. Um, that's a great one. Very specific niche. There's not a lot of people who actually train decathletes because it is hard. Can we gain mass while doing cardio? And if I need to increase my mass along with plyometrics, what should I do? I would prioritize strength and plyometrics and then bring in cardio twice a week. Achilles strengthening, stretching during season. I think a lot of um, wait, Edson Rios just asked how to get a bigger dip. Come on, we just did a whole video that we released on Monday. Um, Solidarity, I hope you're doing well. Great to see everybody in here. Um, Jason is doing a great job. I'm out here in Eugene. Next week, I'll be back in Pennsylvania to finish this up, and I want to go back to Achilles strengthening stuff. I think slow eccentric stuff. I think doing heel unsupported work, holding an isometric action is also important. I think learning how to lengthen your Achilles. So let's say doing heel walks, also doing toe walks, also doing PVC pipe walks. I also think doing PVC pipe lunges is going to be a great way to create more stability in that joint. For football players, would it be better to do track where the program is basically all endurance or do my own sessions of sprinting? I'd have to see the program. I'm leaning towards just sprinting. What do you think about single leg explosive glute bridge for speed? I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't know enough on that. I have not used that for increasing speed. I have not. I don't. I can't comment. I think there's other things that you can accomplish to increase speed, like hill sprints. Joseph, I am in an Airbnb here in Eugene, Oregon. Um, Thoughts on Dame? What's Dame? Since you're in Oregon, thoughts on Dame? I don't know what Dame is. My Achilles tendon hurt in the morning. Any good exercise to help with that? Yeah, I think slow walking, squats, split squats where you push the knee forward. Again, I love PVC pipe walks for the Achilles. That all helps quite a bit. Um, any belt squat variations you like? I'm not a huge belt squat guy. I don't mind it with a band. I don't mind split squats with a band. Um, Not a huge belt squat guy. I think you can get like a really big pump from belt squats, and if you have a hurt back, they do help quite a bit. Um, Damian Lillard. I feel like I'm an idiot for not knowing what this is. Oh, okay. A Trailblazers point guard. Yeah, see, I don't pay enough attention to basketball to have a comment on that. I watch basketball occasionally. I brought this up. Lonnie Walker is from my hometown, actually just signed with the Nets. I wanted to see what people thought about that. All right, I'm gonna head out. Thank you guys this week for tuning in. Don't forget to head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store, Apple iOS Store. We're dropping Athletic Fitness, which is going to be a program inside of Peak Strength, and that's going to help you. It's going to help you with your endurance-based work. It's going to help you with bodybuilding. It's going to help you with more functional-based training as well. A real fun program. Basically, it's the program that I'm following every single day. Is using high rep kid lifting good for anything? Yeah, for sure. High rep kid lifting. That's what I do on a regular basis. Front squats with holding my children. All right, I'm gonna head out. Tomorrow we start the USA Track and Field Nationals. So we got 9 athletes out here. Um, Sam, Cyro, and Nick Arrhenius start tomorrow. We started training yesterday or Monday actually. We started training. I got here on Monday, and then we had a squat or a strength session on Monday. I worked out again yesterday, and it's going to be intense. This is a World Championships qualifier, so it starts Thursday and it goes through Sunday. All right, I'm gonna head out. Peace. Thanks for tuning in to this week's YouTube Live, and thanks everybody.